Hey, welcome back to another item review where we talk about just generally the usefulness of given OSRS items, how worth it they are for their price point, and just, whether or not they're really recommended to be bought and when. Today we're going to be talking about the Oathplate armor set, a fairly new item, and also an item that has like a lot of side grades or stuff that it compares to. So, it's fair to think that people might be a little like uncertain of exactly how it fits into the broad meta. And I got a request to talk about this one, so we're going to go ahead and just give this the once over. Um, Now, one thing that I'm going to say off the top, let's go ahead and look at the header. So this is the price points for the Oathplate armor set as of July 2025. You've got the helm you've got the helm trading for 103. You've got the body and legs both trading for 105. So they're all at a pretty similar price point at the moment, and they're all sitting just over 100 mil. Obviously, the price of an item is one of the most important things when it comes to its usefulness and also how it fits into like a player's progression. So we're going to keep that in mind, that that's the price of this item. We also have to keep in mind how that compares to Bandos and Torva. Torva right now it's a little over 200 mil for a body. I know that for sure. It's a little under 200 mil for plate legs, and then it's what is the price for a helmet? It's 240 mil for a helmet right now. So I think the helmet's the most expensive piece now. It is. Okay, that's interesting. It makes sense though. We'll talk about that in a second. So, yeah, we have to keep in mind it's about half the cost of a Torva piece on average for each piece, and then also it's like 5 times the cost of a Bandos piece. So I'm going to talk about like all the ways that this fits into a best in slot bank, as well as the way that it kind of fits into like a building bank. But I want to say off the top that, in my opinion, like the melee progression, and this is my opinion, some people might disagree, but in my opinion, the melee armor progression these days is pretty cut and dry in terms of the way you should go about it, starting from nothing. And it's cut and dry just because the price points and utilities of the items are just so vocal and clear. Like, what I'm saying basically is that ever since Oathplate has come out, I use my Torva body and legs virtually nowhere. Nowhere. I use them at Nex, in Big Team Nex, and Big Team Corp. I can't, and TOA. There is TOA. I use it at TOA. Other than that, that's like it. So, I mean, unless you're doing a ton of TOA and that small melee upgrade, it is important at TOA, but like, that's what Torva's giving you for like 500 mil at this point. So here's what I'm saying, long and short. I'm going to try to make this melee armor progression as simple as I possibly can for you. Alright? You're going to start by getting something like Blood Moon or Bandos, or just, something with some strength bonus that you can afford that's cheap. And then you're going to go to Oathplate. You're going to go get Oathplate as your next melee armor upgrade. And then you're going to get Inquisitors as your next melee armor upgrade. And then, once you have all that, you're going to get Torva, finally, as your last melee armor upgrade. It depends on what content you do, and like if you're doing a ton of Erexor and Nightmare, for example, you probably go for Inquisitors before Oathplate. And the Torva helmet, you probably want to get that in sooner if you're doing like a bunch of Tob, for example, than the Inquisitors. There's like wiggle room, but generally speaking, in my opinion, it goes Bandos, Oathplate, Inquisitors, Torva, in that order, and that's just kind of the way it is these days, because that's like the descending order of how useful they are, and like as a ratio of how expensive they are, with Bandos just doing so well because it has like a super low price point. So yeah, as much as I can simplify the melee armor progression for like a new player, that's what I would recommend to them, without knowing anything about the types of content that they like to do specifically. Anyways, let's talk about how your Oathplate armor kind of fits with the rest of your bank. So if you have a piece of Torva armor in your bank, then your 2-piece Oathplate is like the 2 pieces is more important to you, basically. Like, because you're going to use it with a Torva helmet at most locations. There's still a few places where the full Oathplate is better than the 1-piece Torva and 2-piece Oathplate, but almost everywhere where you're dealing with a /weak boss, you want to be using 2-piece Oathplate and 1-piece Torva, assuming you have everything. That includes 3 very important locations, which are Tob, Yama, and Colosseum. three very like end game bosses that are great money makers, like, and people want to do that content. Like those are all places where you use two-piece Oathplate with Torva. And in terms of like the major slash weak bosses in the game that aren't weak to full Oathplate, that's pretty much it. So in my opinion, this offers melee upgrades at a cheaper price point than Torva with better utility. I'll just flatly say better. Like I put with similar, if not better, but in my opinion, it's definitely better. Like if you're doing just a broad, like a variety of content where you're engaging with most bosses in the game, you're gonna find that the Oathplate is just coming out way more often than the Torva, assuming you have everything, like by a mile. And now let's talk about your third Oathplate armor piece. Again, I have the helm pictured here, but you can consider these interchangeable. So assuming you have everything in the game, full Torva, full Oathplate, you're going to use your Oathplate helmet. You're going to use your full Oathplate at Vardorvis and Duke, as well as Cox and CMs, because it has the same max hit with a scythe as the two-piece Oathplate and one-piece Torva. Now, Cox and CMs, I want to asterisk this with when the Avernant Treads come out. That's going to make it so full Torva has a 52 max hit with a scythe at CMs and Cox, which is really important. That's like a big threshold. So that's going to potentially change up the meta and maybe make full Oathplate not the play at Cox and CMs anymore. But at Cox and CMs, assuming you're doing any scale that's not like, if anything's going to have any defense, basically, you want to be in full Oathplate at Cox and CMs. And so that's the main gist of it. I feel like the most impactful thing I really could have said in the video I said earlier on, which was that in my opinion, if you want to know just basically where Oathplate fits into your melee progression as a main, it's the first thing that you go for after you get Bandos and a face guard, in my opinion. And that just I just think that's true in my opinion, unless you are doing, like I said, a lot of crush heavy or stab heavy content. Like if you're just sitting at TOA all day, obviously Oathplate doesn't make as much sense for you. I would think that you realize that if you're that person. But just to make sure, if you're doing nothing but TOA and Nex, that's like the one situation where I'd say it doesn't make sense to go straight for Oathplate. Otherwise, though, Oathplate's really good. It holds up really strong to a review. It's useful at a lot of places in a max bank, and it's also like a good upgrade for a building bank, in my opinion. As far as an armor upgrade goes, obviously upgrading like more significant slots first might be an idea, but like it is a lot of money, 100 mil per piece. But if you're at the point where you're ready to start upgrading your armor pieces, then yeah, Oathplate's like the first one that you should really go for, assuming you're doing a broad variety of content. Yeah, I hope that was helpful. See you in the next one.